Viva, have you ever seen a bigger backfire than these Epstein emails?
Well, yeah, it's a double-edged sword because it's a massive backfire. Michael Wolff, if he's not under investigation, deserves to be, but
Yes.
it's such a big backfire that you have to ask yourself, what in the name of sweet holy hell explains the Trump administration's blunder in releasing these documents or ostensibly opposing the release of these files?
Yes, correct.
I don't understand it. There was one email in particular where I forget who wrote it, but it says, of course, Trump, knew about the girls. He asked Ghislaine to stop, and that exonerates Trump. The only thing I can think of is that there are people in the administration who are embarrassed by this, who are protecting their own, and in order to get Trump to try to, not support the release, they had to say, "Hey, Trump, if the media sees this, they're going to argue that you knew about it in advance of when you said you did, and they're going to claim that you were part of it, and therefore you have to oppose full transparency on this." That's like my biggest steel man of an argument as to how Trump was convinced to not say betray the promise, but to backtrack on the promise and then to seemingly criticize those within the Trump supporters who have always wanted the full release of the full Epstein files, myself included. So I don't understand it. It's a massive backfire. It's disgusting. It's depravity. It confirms what we all already knew, that these political, educational, financial elites are a bunch of demonic, satanic pedophile worshippers and pedophiles themselves, allegedly.
Yes. Okay. So tell me about Vince Foster and Hillary Clinton doing naughty things. Like, what does that exactly say? And can you please educate me a little more on the Vince Foster suicide? What a special moment in American history that happened just in time for us to not have the robust independent media ecosystem, or I'm just not sure you would have been able to pull these kind of things off.
It's the internet trope, like the Vince Foster. We don't make fun of suicide, but you say like, every time someone dies, the meme is them writing an email, "I've got dirt on Hillary Clinton," and no matter how they die, cancer, car accident, whatever, it's the trope. Vince Foster, whether or not you believe the man shot himself in the back of the head at a very curious time. It's like the other one, I forget who it was, that was found hanging from a tree, shot twice in the chest with a shotgun that was 27 feet from his body, that they rule a suicide. It's nobody believed it at the time. This is the first time in my life that I've ever heard of the rumor that Hillary was doing the nasty with Vince Foster. Some of us, I thought the rumor was that she batted for the other team, and nothing wrong with that, but that was the rumor. This is outrageous. It's outrageous. Who is it? What we're seeing now? Who's involved in these emails? The extent to which they were involved, looking like they were using Epstein to set up Donald Trump, and now they release this. Did you notice when Kevin Spacey said that Clinton there were little girls or young girls on the plane, and then he had to immediately add, "Well, this is public. I'm not accidentally disclosing something that I have personal knowledge of."
That wasn't public, by the way. Nobody's asked Bill Clinton about that. Bill Clinton's still wandering the halls of polite society, giving very low energy Biden-esque level speeches, picking up checks, and nobody asks him this. He's fully available to be asked.
He was getting a deep tissue back massage from one of Epstein's victims. I mean, the photograph is there.
There's photographs,
and it's so in your face. People are like, this photograph has to be AI, like the new generation who didn't grow up with this stuff. But it does beg the question as to why on earth the administration, backtracked on the promise to release these files, and it makes you ask some questions about the advice that Trump is getting from some members of his administration. But other than that, this is Michael Wolff, literally the journalist who wrote that book after he was led into the White House, literally colluding with Jeffrey Epstein to try to blackmail Donald Trump in 2016. This is criminality of the highest order, and Cash and Dan have got their hands full dealing with other fires, but Michael Wolff should be under investigation for something. This is not a show me the man, find me the crime. I have a good indication that this is criminal wrongdoing, whether or not it's barred by statute of limitations. There was conspiracy here to manufacture blackmail, and whether or not it's time barred is one thing, but these people should be under investigation.
Yeah, the truth is the truth, and I sometimes feel like getting the truth out there is almost more damaging than any prison sentence for these people. And I would love to see that. And I guess the breakdown of the Michael Wolff email here is clearly the most damning thing in all of this. Him saying that Vince Foster and Hillary Clinton were doing something naughty, I think everyone supposed that that was what the operation was, but this just lays bare that what Jeffrey Epstein was somebody who was designed to be a predator and a pedophile, and was designed to run such a demonic and sick enterprise that anybody who was associated with it, just by proxy, just by having Jeffrey Epstein invited to your home, would be smeared for life and would be compromised for life, even if they did nothing. And you could see that in the Wolf emails, where he's just like, you know, just by the fact that Trump knew you, we can now use that to manipulate Trump, to get payments, to get favors, to make the presumptive presidential candidate, then president, bow to our will. And then you mix that with the new reporting about how closely Jeffrey Epstein was operating with the nation state of Israel, and how he was, I mean, it's become quite clear now. The conspiracy theory is that Jeffrey Epstein was just some weirdo who was good at running numbers. Now the proof is that he was clearly running some type of large-scale industrial op for foreign intelligence, right? Am I going crazy, Viva, or no?
No, I think people are going to accuse me of trying to defend Israel here, which I'm not. I say it's not only Israel; it's all intelligence. I mean, once he's being used by the CIA, because he's being used by the CIA, and this is something that people don't talk about. Everybody wants the files going after the FBI. The CIA might be where you go to get the documents on Jeffrey Epstein. He was working with, if not with intelligence, quite clearly he was working with intelligence, and the only question is who he was blackmailing. People say it's a conspiracy theory. There's literal, black and white evidence that he was trying to blackmail Bill Gates. And you say, well, not for intelligence. Who the hell? You keep moving these goalposts, not you, but the world. He was running a blackmail operation. He was obviously getting his own sexual perversions off at the same time. And, it's not clear who was using who. Is he blackmailing others? Was the CIA using him to blackmail others? And this is where it gets dark for the purposes of, the American administration. If the CIA was knowingly using someone who they knew was a pedophile, sexually abusing children, and they were using him for intelligence purposes, I mean, that might be just as embarrassing as the CIA selling crack to the black community in Los Angeles and destroying a generation of men and families. So that might be the national security issue, the national embarrassment issue, that the CIA was using a pedophile for their own nefarious purposes. But sunlight is the greatest disinfectant. This is going to come out, but it does go back to the old intelligence trope that you can't control what people know. You can just control when they learn it. And so wait enough, long enough period of time. The guilty people die, the rage dies out, and then you disclose the information, bit by bit, drop by drop. But it's wild. I mean, Epstein's connection to Ehud Barak, documented. That Ehud Barak invested millions in whatever company Epstein was working with. I think it was with his sister. I might get some of those details wrong, which had to do with like geo-tracking and video content. And Ehud Barak visiting him, I don't know, whatever, a dozen times after it's known that he's a convicted sex offender. And Ehud Barak's explanation as a former prime minister of Israel is, I didn't know. Like, they don't do background checks on everybody and anybody who comes in contact with a former prime minister of Israel and an investor in his company. I mean, it's known. It's black and white. Anybody who denies it is living, a pipe dream. But why this administration was so reluctant to follow through on, it might not have been a core promise of the campaign, but it certainly was a key issue of it, both in 2016 and 2024. Why they blundered this so badly. You can blame Trump for taking bad advice from people, but it was clearly the result of bad advice and some bad judgment.
I cannot agree more. I view this as the single most damaging own goal, I think, of the first year of the Trump administration, in the way that it was, in the way that it was done, and in the way that it was rolled out, and in the conclusions, because the conclusions are just patently false. I mean, I just don't know how to square that, Viva. And here's what I'm talking about. So there was a follow-up to the original, release that was done on the 4th of July weekend of all time. Like, do you understand timing on these things? Like, I was like, why release this on the 4th of July? I will never fully understand. But there was a follow-up that says, we have absolutely zero evidence zero of Jeffrey Epstein blackmailing anyone. And he had some nasty relationships with these women, and we all knew that, but there was zero evidence of blackmail. Well, dude, okay, first off, here's evidence of him blackmailing Trump, right? Like with Michael Wolff. Like that's available to the government. You can see it. That's a matter of fact. There's also I've asked my producers to grab them. There's tons of articles about how he blackmailed Bill Gates.
Yeah, but like they use the word they use the word verbatim, so it's not like you can't even say that someone's being hyperbolic or it's for defamatory reasons that you can't make the accusation. He's dead. It's black and white, documented for years. And someone's gonna say, well, okay, he did it with Bill Gates. That was a one-off. Horse crap. I mean, and some of these things were known, and some of these things were known by members of the administration who was flying on the plane with Clinton. Self-own is an understatement. I sincerely believe it might have been either people protecting their own from criminality or saboteurs. Like if you wanted to do what you could to cause internal strife and attempt to discredit some key members of the administration, in particular the FBI, you would get the administration to make statements that would embarrass members of the FBI for things that they have said publicly for the last several years. And that's unfortunately, to some extent, what happened. A lot of us, we know what Kash Patel had been saying about deep state actors. We know what Bongino has been saying for years about Clinton on the plane from his sources. And when you come out and have an administration produce an unsigned document and then suggest that members of the administration who have been saying the opposite for years somehow signed off on this unsigned document, and we all know what document I'm talking about, who I'm talking about. This is like acts of sabotage that causes unnecessary damage, that pushes away a key component of the Trump base to the detriment of Trump's ability to govern, have faith by the people who put him there, and then heading into the midterms, potentially more serious consequences.
Yeah, I don't quite understand. I don't quite understand how this has been played to the detriment of Trump. I don't think, I think obviously the damage that has been done has been done. But again, for the life of me, I can't figure out why not just be out with all of it. For the life of me, I can't quite square. I've never been able to square that hole, man. Like everything that I see, including this release, is such a self-owned by Democrats. It's so empirical that you can just backstop it with Virginia Roberts, with Trump's own behavior. They have, like, as far as I've seen, they've had nothing to hide. And here's Mike Johnson out saying that Trump was an FBI informant. They've tried to walk that back, but it's true. He said it, and it's clear that he was.
It has a connotation. Anybody who's provided information to the FBI technically is an informant, I guess.
Yes,
so it has a broader term. People think of agents like Serpico or something working with the FBI as an undercover agent. If he provided info and intel when they were investigating Epstein, technically it's true. But and the deceitfulness of the Democrats to try to redact Virginia Giuffre's name,
right,
and then to suggest one of the victims had spent hours with Donald Trump. Like, I was opining publicly in my thoughts, like, Virginia worked at Mar-a-Lago. I mean, whether or not you think a young girl should be, working whatever position she was as a legit job. I had summer jobs.
She was a masseuse. Like, young girls work as masseuses at, like, rich guy clubs.
That's a
matter of fact. I mean, it's Florida, man. Have you ever been to massage?
No, I don't like anybody touching my body. It'll keep me out of trouble, except my wife.
You don't have, he's like obviously this is where trouble can happen, but like there's plenty of reputable massage places, right? Like
she's legally working for Mar-a-Lago. It's normal she would spend hours with the owner. I don't know, maybe. So they suggest one of the victims spent hours with her. Redacted name, so you don't know. It's smoke and mirrors. But the only issue is, whether or not the administration was convinced wrongly that the proximity of some members of the community, because of the administration, like you say, guilt by association, people in the admin were neighbors to Jeffrey Epstein. Yes. Other members of the admin, did business with, I don't know, how to manage their fund, whatever. So there is a guilt by association, and maybe they're all like, just deny, because we'll all be lumped into this together to the extent that we're innocent. Flip side, maybe some key, not players in the administration, but some prominent members who have now turned to supporting Trump would be embarrassed by this. And I have zero doubt that is the case. But you do not bear false witness to yourself or others, and you don't betray your own base. It's like, Ben, people are saying, Viva, he's playing 4D, 5D chess. The more he denies it, the more the media talks about it. That's one thing. But coming out and saying, point blank, if you continue to push this, you're not my demographic anymore. I mean, that's slapping in the face and almost turning your most ardent supporters into traitors. That's not something you say, even if you're playing 4D, 5D, or 70D chess. That's something that very few people might be able to forgive at the end of the day, even if this turns out to be a net positive. We're not there yet, but we're certainly turning a corner.
All right. Well, I can't believe that, like, after all of this and after the month that we've had and the couple months that we've had, man, Charlie, there's a video now from Megyn Kelly that she's posted of Charlie telling Tucker to go all the way, go full guns blazing on Epstein. And he told me the same thing right at the same conference. And it was Charlie, actually, who viewed the rollout of this as something that could really be a threat, clearly, and used against the Trump administration. He saw it clear as day. He saw it crystal clear that if you don't tell if you are running in order to destroy the establishment, then you have to destroy the establishment. And there's nothing more sick and more perverse than what was going on with Jeffrey Epstein within the establishment. And I don't nobody is quite sure where this tale is going to end. What do you think, Viva? What do you think is going to be the ultimate result here?
We're going to get the information. It'll go the slower way and the harder way. But it's like, when Don Jr. months ago, you cannot put people in a position where they have to betray their long-held principles in order to continue to support the administration. And I'm saying all of this, it's not self-preservation. It's not even self-justification. If I were on today to take a 180-degree turn from what has been my position since 2016, it would be suspicious. I'd have to have a damn good reason to do it.
That's right.
And B, if it's not authentic, I would feel like an absolute traitor, like an absolute betrayer to my own principles.
That's right.
You have people who are now saying Epstein issue is no big deal. There's tweets from them. And by the way, I'm not saying Don Jr. because he's been consistent and probably polite in I don't think he's changed his view at all. But there's I won't call them influencers. That's a demeaning term, but there's a lot of vocal voices on Twitter who are literally taking 180s from positions they've taken on Epstein from barely a few months ago or a couple of years ago. And I'm not saying it's suspicious. I'm not going to accuse anybody of getting paid, but it's intellectually and morally inconsistent. And so, and you can't ask the most vocal supporters of your administration, people who've been supporting you for years to their own sacrifice, to say, you better switch and go pull a 180 or you're no longer, I no longer want your support. So it's been a disaster, an unnecessary disaster. It's coming around right now. And people are going to say, well, this was the plan all along. Well, then you didn't have to say and do certain things. You could have let this play out a little bit.
You just out with it. Yeah, that's right. There was a good model, and the model was the JFK files. And you could have done it like that. There are files that we still don't have on JFK, but you could have just done that. Okay, here's 50,000 files. Have a great day, right? Rip through them, okay? And we'll release the other 50,000 when you're dead, whatever.
When everyone is dead.
But to say nothing, we have nothing. It's because clearly they did have something. Here's Michael Wolff, the guy who was allowed in the White House in the first administration, out saying that he's going to blackmail Trump just merely based on the association with Jeffrey Epstein.
Who's the guy tipping off Epstein to investigations? This is, everybody should read Ashley Rinsberg's book, The Gray Lady Winks, or The Gray Lady Winked. It's about the New York Times, not just being wrong throughout history, fractal wrongness, which at some point in time becomes deliberate. They are propagandists who have been working for the forces of evil basically since their inception. And right now you have journalists at the New York Times colluding with Jeffrey Epstein, helping Jeffrey Epstein in 2016, a known convicted sex offender. Holy crap. I'm happy that I don't leave the house more often because nothing good happens when you leave the house. But no, we're dealing with bad faith players who are liars, who, talk about undermining democracy. The Russiagate hoax was an attempt to subvert democracy, and they lie and they whip people up into assassination frenzies. These people have literal blood on their hands. And right now we're getting wind of the fact that they were working with a convicted sex offender to try to frame Trump, blackmail Trump, extort Trump. It's disgusting. The only question is it criminal? And if it is it beyond the statute of limitations? Because people need to go to jail for this. But alas, let's deal with that when we get to it. For now, disclosures are proving to be very juicy.
Let's burn it all down. It is such a great point that you make, that you just kind of have to like look the man in the mirror in the morning and like, can you live with that person? And if you are betraying your audience and if you are lying to them, then you can't actually. You're an immoral person. And you don't deserve an audience, actually, if you can't just be truthful. And I look at the faces of my children. I know that you have a beautiful family, Viva. And I don't want to lie to my kids either. And it's critically important that you don't change on these things. And we're very proud that we have stayed the course on all of this. And as Charlie, it's funny, all the stories now that are trickling out, how aggressively he went against the administration. Tucker Carlson has something up, this morning as he's recalling how Charlie was in the White House. He was the only guy in the White House, like hammering them against going to war with Iran. The only guy. And so it's important to not betray yourself, because like actually self-betrayal is the thing that destroys your soul. And I have one final little thing for you, Viva, which is an important historic photo. This is a historic photo to prove this point out of our executive producer, ALX, receiving one of the infamous Epstein binders at a White House meeting, thumbing, instead of posing and dancing for the cameras and doing a little jig in front of the cameras, ALX actually went through the binder and said, this is bullshit. He went through it like, this is ALX. This is a historic photograph of ALX, our executive producer. You know him well, going through the binder and saying, wait a second, none of this is new. All of this is already publicly available information. This is total garbage.
Oh, and some of it was more redacted than what was publicly available. I mean, and you look, I don't blame anyone else there. I appreciate the story. And Liz Wheeler came on and explained, people were caught off guard and they didn't even know what they did.
I'm not attacking anyone. I'm not attacking anyone.
But it's
become a meme, so you got to acknowledge the meme. You have to acknowledge reality.
He's looking through and saying, what the hell is this SHIT? This is not new. It's more redacted than what's already publicly out there. And this is phase one. And I guess we're getting phase two now. But no, I tell my kids things, the number one lesson is there's nothing worse than being a liar. And there's nothing, when people cannot trust you, you are alone among men. Yes. And you can change your mind. Like if there was video of Epstein, in the cell, tying some sheets together and, doing it, I'd say, okay, fine. I am now convinced that he took his own life. I would still then say it's a manufactured plot because he shouldn't have had sheets in there in the first place. How did he get extra linen? But at the very least, you can change your mind when there's additional evidence to warrant it. That's right. It's not a question of being stubborn, but, changing your mind without any evidence just because you're being pressured to do so, or because you think it's, I don't know, socially, politically more expedient. Look, I'd rather be consistent and be called a panikin at some point in time, although I wasn't. But I was criticized for belaboring the Epstein files, and I still will. But look, I'll say a little bit of vindication in that Trump is not inculpated at all. He got some bad flipping advice, and had this been released back 6 months ago, holy hell, things might have been different. But better late than never.
That's so true. Why not release that Hillary Clinton had a relationship with the guy that was suicided at the White House, and that Michael Wolff was working with Jeffrey Epstein to smear Trump? Why not put that in the binder? Like, you had all of it. Why not just shove that in the binder? It's crazy.
It doesn't make sense. And, people will say, don't attribute to malice what can be explained by incompetence, but there are going to be a number of people out there that are going to attribute this to malice and people potentially trying to sabotage Trump from within.
All we're trying to do here is not to attack people that are working so damn hard. I was just at the White House this Friday, working so damn hard to save this country. All the young staffers, they are like burning the candle at both ends. They really do love this nation, and they really are trying to save it. And there are some deeply good and honest and moral people in that administration. This is just to lock them back into the base. Yeah, Viva, this is the fun, something happens when you go up to DC. It's a reality distortion zone. And it's designed that way in order to manipulate Republican administrations and make them take mistakes like this, step on rakes, and to betray their base and try and disconnect them from the base. And it's happening right now. And it's up to us, the base, with influence, to reach out and to sometimes knock it back on course.
Well,
it's important to do that.
true friends do not let friends make mistakes. I mean, you're not. It's like, you know, I sort of analogize it to
or make mistakes without like confronting them about
well,
it, right?
That's what I mean. You can't prevent
Yeah.
people. But like, I sort of analogize it to the trans, you know, affirmation movement, where people, I love my kids so much, I'm going to let them make a life altering mistake. No. You love your kid. It doesn't mean you listen to your kid. And if you respect someone, it doesn't mean that you sit there quietly while they do what you think is an objective mistake. And so
Yes.
criticism, there's two types of criticism, but constructive and destructive. Now, when I went after Justin Trudeau, it's destructive criticism. I'm not trying to make him better. The man is evil, and I want to see him, eliminated, removed from power. Better make sure to qualify that so nobody takes that out of context. I wanted to see that administration fall, not get replaced by Mark J. Carney. But then you can offer constructive criticism to people who you think can be better and who you want to be better. And to sit there quietly while Trump, or even to egg it on, to cheer it on, encourage it, say, yeah, good move, Trump. Call your base, anybody who pursues this, that you no longer want their support. I mean, you're not helping. And the only question is if you're not helping on purpose or through bad strategy, but the outcome is the same. So sometimes you don't always not criticize the people you want to make better. Sometimes it's your obligation to do so.
Yes, if you watch your friend get blackout drunk because they're dealing with some terrible stuff and then go home and beat his wife and you do nothing about it, then you're a bad person, actually. You don't care about them. You clearly care nothing for either of them, right? Like, and this is what a friend does, is they intervene in that moment. Right. What a friend does is they intervene and say, I love you. Stop doing this. This is self-destructive behavior. That you only do that if you love someone. And I love the American people. I love the MAGA movement. I love the Trump administration and the base. And these are acts of love.
It's America's last hope. I don't want not to sound like, hyperbolic. Trump administration needs to succeed. And whether or not it does it slower or faster, it needs to. Because if this goes 2026, a sweep in the other direction, and 2028, Kamala Harris 2.0, AOC, look, Canada has gone the way it's gone. If America goes the way of Canada, there's literally no bastion of hope left on this earth. So it's kind of existentially important.
You're right. Yep. And I'll never leave, This is where my grandpappies, fought and died, and this is where I'm never going to leave, right?
There's nowhere else to go, man. I came, I hope to stay, and there's nowhere else to go. So
yes, that's
Florida
right.
is the best place on earth.
That's exactly right. All right. Well, good luck to your native peoples and their new first lady, Katy Perry. Viva Fry is here on X. You can obviously follow him. You can follow him on X and on Rumble, where he has his show. He has nearly 1 million subscribers here on X, and he has on Rumble. Let's go ahead and check here.
You're being generous.
100,000, 400,000, 500,000. We just round up. Simple math. We round up. New math. We round up 500,000 subs on Rumble. Godspeed, Viva. We're huge fans of you.
Thank you very much.